Good evening, everyone. Welcome back for another round of the TRC Posh British GT3 series. This week we have ventured outside of the UK for the first time, and we will be racing here at Barcelona. Is a bit of a chance of weather for tonight. I believe the rain is 30% chance. There is a possibility that it got bumped up. But we will have two races tonight, back to the sprint format, 25-minute sprints. We will have two races tonight with two qualifying sessions. The podium finishers from race number 1 will not be able to get multiple flying laps in Q2. They will just have one opportunity for a flying lap in Q2. Has come to bite some of our top drivers, because they definitely have the pace to cut their way through the field, or have the pace to get back up there on the top step and lock into the front row, but maybe things don't quite go their way. Push a little bit too hard on the one lap that you get, and that is all it takes. Invalidated, and you will be relegated to the back. So long as everyone else has completed a valid lap. If there are some others who didn't complete a valid lap either, then there's a possibility that you won't be completely in the back, but you'll still be a lot further back than you would have been with a valid lap. Lab A looking to continue the streak of dominance tonight in the Aston Martin. It has been Aston Martin dominance for quite some time. Just continuing to get the laps in, about halfway through our final practice session before qualifying. We do have 12 drivers on the grid for tonight's race. We hope to get a couple more before the night is over. Lab A still with the dominant position, the dominance in free practice. And Lab A has been nothing but dominance throughout this season. A very likely candidate for the double championship. In his rookie season, both get the Holy Grail Rookie Championship win and the overall championship win. Just showing absolute mastery in the old Aston Martin V12. Veldkamp in the 616 Aston Martin, about 1.7 seconds down. Horner in the Bentley in third, only about a tenth more, a little over a tenth more. Labby again with the large margin. Mansueto in fourth, the top running Jaguar so far, 2.4 seconds off the pace. Shout out to Ewer. Ewer in the Bentley, the number 289, green and gold. Classic colors in the classic Bentley. Currently giving chase to the leading 119 of Lab A. Veldkamp has taken a bit of that time out, about a quarter of a second. Horner has improved as well. Mansueto still with some time to improve though. And a few more of our drivers yet to input a valid lap for practice. Craters actually bringing up the rear of those laps that have been set. 5.2 seconds currently off the pace. And these older cars definitely posing a challenge to some drivers. Quite a few who would have been right there at the top in contention in previous series, maybe in a few different cars, GT3 or GT4. Newer cars, that is, but these older GT3s definitely seeming to be a bit of a struggle. Some growing pains trying to adapt to different machinery. But this is pretty much the halfway point of this series. Have a few more rounds left. Technically the halfway point of the season would have been last week, but the true halfway point is we will have an endurance finale. I believe it's a 7th round to this series, and also be back here with us on Monday for the preseason race for Go Fast Racing. We will be bringing that back. Season 5, the record-shattering Season 4, looking to continue shattering the records for Season 5. Make sure you are here and join the Discord server if you'd like to get involved with Go Fast Racing. Lab A in the pit lane. Veldkamp coming out of what I believe is turn 5 through 6 into 7. Mansueto, the top running Jag, in 4th. Horner, the top running Bentley, in 3rd. But still a few more of our drivers yet to put those lap times down. Two-minute warning for free practice. Majority of the drivers are out on track getting some more laps in. Norman in the number 12 Aston Martin in the pit lane, not going for a lap. Ewer in the 289 Bentley, still yet to bring a valid lap. And Wagner in the number 99 Bentley, one of the top contenders for the Bentleys, and does have a race victory in this season. Still yet to apply a valid lap time. Maybe didn't really go out for too much. And Brown in the Jag making an entry, just getting the car off the trailer and into the pit lane before the free practice session comes to an end. Don't think he'll have enough time to get out on track and get some laps in, but has at least made it out to the pit lane, ready to go for qualifying. The 915 of Horner in the Bentley out of the final corner and across the line, looking to improve. It won't be on this lap. Maybe he'll go for one more flying lap. Maybe he'll hold the time for the real show in qualifying. And the 84 of Brown does manage to make it out on track. And we'll at least get some time in the seat around Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, before the session comes to an end. If he comes to the line, it will end the session, but he is at least out with some time to get a bit warmed up before qualifying. Also, in a couple weeks, the Aztec Racing Endurance Cup 24 Hours of Spa is around. If you'd like to register a team, make sure you join the Aztec Racing Discord server. You can find the link in my personal Discord server. And also, go ahead and follow here. Stay tuned for the updates, as I will be streaming the entirety of the Aztec Racing 24 Hours. And if you are a supporter of TRC, make sure you stick around and support the 2 TRC Vision Racing Bentleys that will be running in the Spa 24 Hour. They are looking for some drivers as well. That is February 22nd. So in about 10 days, or a week and a half. It is not this weekend, but next weekend on Saturday. Saturday going into Sunday. Norman, the first out for Q1. Just a 10-minute qualifying session before our first of 2 25-minute races. We will have a second qualifying session. The podium finishers in race number 1 will not be allowed more than 1 flying lap for Q2. But as of right now, everyone gets as many laps as they want to put everything on the line, try and get the fastest lap together that they possibly can. Not too many opportunities for a lap, though. I believe you will get 5 shots at a flying lap. The outlap a bit long here. I think you may have the opportunity to get 6 laps in, as long as you are immediately rolling out of the pit lane as soon as the timer gets started. Into the chicane before coming into the final corner for Norman. Flat out leaning on those driver's side tires on the left-hand side. May have been a bit of a wobble off into the sand, but it still is good for a valid lap flying across the line to start his first and the first flying lap of this qualifying session. One of the most glorious parts of this kind of throwback series with a few of the older cars is just the sounds. Not so much the monotone sounds of the modern day GT3 cars, where really only the Mustang and the Porsche stand out among the field of some V8s, but mostly V6s. Here we get screaming V8s and screaming V12s. The Aston Martin, kind of the representative Porsche of this series, being the loudest car around the track. Arguably the best sounding. Some may say the Bentley sounds a bit better, some may say the Jag sounds a bit better, but the Aston Martin with that screaming V12 is a top contender. Into the chicane and out of the final corner. It's deep into the chicane, though. It's going to make things a bit harder. We'll have to go for another lap and is not going to have quite the momentum across the line. And not valid for Norman. does set up nicely for another opportunity. We'll see if the 97 of Merkel able to set a valid lap, and no valid lap for Merkel there. What about the 119 of Labe? The favorite to be on pole, but once again, no valid lap, possibly just an out lap for Labe. Miller goes fastest in the Bentley with a 148.3, the first time on the board. But it does seem to be that the majority of the field has just been on out laps. DeHaro does go quicker in the Jag, 147.6. Miller demoted to third, or sorry, stays in second. Bahena down to third in the Aston Martin. So at least one car of each manufacturer setting a lap time. 289 of Ewer across the line. Goes fourth fastest for now, the number 913 of Craters across the line to start a flying lap. The 84 of Brown across the line to start a flying lap, and just a couple more opportunities to get that lap in. That's about a minute 45, 46, 47 seconds for those laps. Our pole lap should be down in the 145s from Labe, possibly in the 146s. The track is not quite at its optimum racing conditions, but it is getting there. The track is dry at least, doesn't seem to be changing too much. Norman up to P2, only 0.2 of a second short of the time set by DeHaro. 147.650 for Norman versus DeHaro's 147.650 versus a 147.642. Labe goes fastest with a 45.602, putting 2 seconds between himself and the next car in line. On the timing board, the 915 of Horner up to P2, 1.3 seconds to Labe. Now Mansueto, just a 100th of a second faster, goes up to P2. The 18 of Bahena P7. The 616 of Veldkamp goes P4. And just a couple laps left to go. The 99 of Wagner still yet to set a flying lap. It is one of the favorites, definitely the favorite of the Bentleys. The 913 of Craters across the line goes 8th fastest in the Jaguar. We'll see the 84 of Brown actually goes around a bit too early on the throttle coming out of the corner. We'll have one more opportunity for a true flying lap, as he's not quite going to have flying lap momentum across the start-finish line. And we'll have 2 more shots at a valid flying lap. The 12 of Norman across the line goes to P4. Norman carrying a bit of speed in that Aston Martin. And the gap between the podium getting a bit tighter. Still just a 100th of a second between Mansueto and Horner. 97 of Merkel did not improve. The 119 of Labe found a bit more time, about half a second more. 47 of Miller currently P10 goes up to P7. The 915 of Horner stays P3. Will have 2 more opportunities. Narrowly will cross the line with enough time to set another flying lap. Mansueto still in P2. The 43 of DeHaro P6. The 616 of Veldkamp just needs a couple tenths, did not find it, stays P5. The 99 of Wagner still yet to set a flying lap, has one more opportunity or will be starting from the back of the field. The 2 Jags of Brown and Todd still yet to set a time as well. Back on pole, and I don't think anyone really doubted his ability. Labe, the 45.065, currently sits comfortably on the pole with a 1.8, almost a 1.9 second gap to P2. And that gap to at least Mansueto will not change as Mansueto is in the pit lane. The 84 of Brown. This lap again does not have true flying laps momentum across the line, but will be able to go for another. Brown goes P12. 12 of Norman in P4. The 97 of Merkel will come across the line with enough time to finish one more flying lap. Merkel goes up to P7. The 119 of Labe, does he improve anymore? Does not find any more improvement, but he will stay out and continue to try and find a bit more time. Miller in P8 stays P8, has just a few seconds clear to go for another flying lap. The 43 of DeHaro with 1 second left has enough time for another flying lap. Currently P5, only needs a 10th to get up to P4. A hundredth separating P5 and P6, and a 100th separating P2 and P3. The 99 of Horner will not set a flying lap. The 289 of Ewer, currently P11 across the line for the Bentley, goes up to P8. The 913 of Craters in the Jag across the line goes P7. The 25 of Todd, to see whether or not Wagner gets relegated all the way back to the rear end of the pack, goes P12, and yes, Wagner will start from the very back. The 97 of Merkel. Through turns 12 and 13. Down into the chicane. Merkel, I believe, the last of our drivers with the ability to improve on his time. Out of the final corner and across the line for Merkel. Stays P8, but that will bring it into our qualifying session. It's Labe on pole. Labe, Mansueto, Horner, Veldkamp, Norman, DeHaro, Craters, Merkel, Ewer, Miller, Bahena, Todd, Brown, and Wagner. Your starting order. And in the AM split for our Holy Grail Series, Labe on pole, Mansueto P2, Veldkamp P3, DeHaro P4, Ewer P5, Bahena P6, Todd P7, and Brown P8. We have two of our Holy Grail drivers at the front of the grid, and a large concentration of Holy Grail drivers looking to upgrade the license a little bit with this series. Definitely have the opportunity to do so, to get promoted up into silver or possibly even gold, as I believe Labe with his race wins would have the opportunity to promote to gold. And thank you, Twofer, for the follow. So we have just a couple minutes left to go before we start this formation lap. We will take a short break and be right back for the formation lap. And welcome back. Lab A will fire up the Aston Martin V12 and lead us off the line to start the first of our 2 formation laps for our first of 2 races tonight. 25-minute sprint here at Barcelona. This one will go into the nighttime hours. And a small chance of rain, but it does not seem to be that we'll get any of that rain. There is a lot of weaving, especially with cooler temperatures, to try and build that tire temperature. Get that brake temperature up as well. Make those brakes to where they are nice and mushy to slow the car down. Heading into turn 1 could be a bit of a hectic sector, as there is a lot of cars, possibly 3, possibly 4 wide, all trying to fit in to that turn 1 section. They will definitely get settled out by the time they get to turn 3. As turn 3, the long left-hander, very hard to go side by side, and the outside line just loses time, does not have the ability to carry the same momentum through as the inside line. So you will be pretty much forced to be single file, or if you are not single file, you're likely fighting for a position backwards trying to defend into turn 4, but a car up the inside, very easy for them to go ahead and take that, especially with the slight switch over before the turn 5 left-hander. Onto the back straight, still trying to weave, trying to build up as much tire temperature as possible. Tire life not going to be too much of a factor to deal with, as it is just a 25-minute sprint race. No need for a stop, no fuel, no tires. Whatever you have got, take it to the end. A lot of calculation to try and make sure that you have as little fuel in the car as possible. And maybe a bit more aggressive on the tire temperatures, as you are not trying to really get much life out of those tires. You just need essentially 10 laps or so. As we head into the chicane, the 2x2 call will be given. The drivers will line up side by side and ready to take the green flag, as Lab A and Mansueto will lead them to the line. Mansueto looking for a first-time win in this series, possibly a first-time win in TRC, and has definitely shown an improvement in pace throughout this season. Side by side, they line up to take the green flag for round 4 of the TRC Posh British GT3 series. Lab A with a good start. Mansueto actually seemingly getting a poor start. It's Horner up the inside at turn 1 and Horner up into P2, but they do spread out 3 wide, 4 wide behind. I believe there was some contact with the 99 Bentley of Wagner, who has gone up a couple positions but now is trapped in traffic. Lab A, with them fighting behind, has been able to kind of pull a gap. Horner did jump Mansueto very early on, but Bahena, a big early mover, up into what looks to be P5. Does need to get those lights turned on and wanting to be aggressive early. Looked for the inside of Norman at turn 7. The opportunity was not there, but still definitely looking for any possible opening. And Wagner hard charging into turn 10, making a bit of door contact and goes straight on through. I believe you were caught in a little bit of contact there as well. Wagner making up a lot of positions on lap 1. but a little bit too eager on that move, and right back down the order he goes. A big wiggle from Horner out of the final corner. Will it give Mansueto the run with the slipstream? I think it will. See how close the Jaguar can pull on the Bentley. Not quite to the bumper, and very aggressive to carry as much momentum through as possible. Horner will hold on to the position. Bahena up to P5. The gap in front of Norman to the top three is growing quite a bit, but Bahena wanting to apply some pressure to Norman. I think we may have not lost Bahena, but I think Bahena may be having a few connection issues. Sorry, thought I got kicked out of the session there. Luckily, I did not. Horner and Mansueto fighting for P2. Horner, who got the jump on Mansueto, as Mansueto gets it kind of wrong into turn 9, will lose a ton of momentum down the back straight. But at the same time, Horner in the Bentley does seem to be gaining a bit of ground on the Aston Martin, leading of Labe. Veldkamp applying pressure to the early mover of Bahena. Let's see if Veldkamp able to force any attacks onto the 18 Aston Martin. But no, too late into the brakes. And a big slide, managing to hold on to it, managing not to stall. Sliding like that, just keeping it rolling, but a bit of a indicator flash there for Veldkamp. I think he thought that he may be losing a bit more time. Was not, though. Wagner with the Jaguar of DeHaro as they go side by side through turn 1. I believe that's the Jag of DeHaro, and yes, it is. With the number 97 Aston Martin of Merkel behind, and the Jaguar of Brown bringing up the rear. It looked like Horner was closing the gap to Labe up ahead. Horner does hold the fastest lap of the race, but has now fallen backwards into the clutches of Mansueto. As long as Mansueto gets a much better run through turn 9, Mansueto may be able to get the slipstream. Does get a much better run than Horner, as Horner is the one this time that goes 2 tires into the sand. Bahena in the background does as well. And Crater's in the Jag, possibly a setup issue. A massive slide into turn 9, and will lose a ton of positions, as he has pretty much no momentum going down the backstretch. It's Todd in the blue Jag leading 289 of Ewer. And then Miller, Wagner in the Bentleys behind. There's a large crowd of Bentleys behind the number 6 Jag of Todd. Todd will do his best to run away. The gap ahead is growing to the number 18 of Bahena. 6:16 of Veldkamp, after that slide on the previous lap, has gone down pretty much to the very back of the field. The group of Bentleys behind Todd getting a bit dense. And if Ewer and Wagner continue to battle, that density will increase, as we've got, I believe, 5 more cars behind that are willing to gather up a couple positions. Horner and Mansueto continuing their fight. Horner does not seem to be able to escape the grasp of the Jag of Mansueto, who I'm sure would love to at least get a podium. Labe, the race leader, just exiting the foreground. The Jag in the slipstream, able to close up the gap to the Bentley. By a decent margin. I just think the Bentley may get a bit more drive through what is essentially the arena section. Turns 10, 11, 12, and 13. And Horner not so much getting much drive on the front tires through the final corner. Does much better on this lap, getting the front end to rotate. But Mansueto still within that slipstream range. And meatball flags out for somebody. I believe that is for Bahena needing to turn the lights on. Has a couple laps to turn the lights on until a penalty is not rewarded but given. Miller making contact with the Jag. Was that the Jag of Craters? No. Was it the Jag of DeHaro? I believe it may have been the Jag of DeHaro. They both went off side by side in turn 1. Mansueto still closing up to the rear of Horner. Mansueto qualified higher, but it was not much of a difference in lap time between these two. And Mansueto at least showing that he does have a little bit more lap time than the Bentley. A big wiggle coming out of turn 10 from Mansueto. Seemingly an inability to get on the power as he was on that painted tarmac. As they come down into the chicane, Horner with a big slide. Will the opportunity now open for the 185 of Mansueto? He'll be much closer in the slipstream with a bit more momentum. But I don't know if he'll get close enough for the opportunity. Last time that Mansueto was this close, actually was even closer, did not go for the overtake as we are approaching halfway point of this race, about a couple laps away. The time to make those moves is soon approaching. Mansueto with a bit more drive up the inside at turn 3. And later on the brakes, carrying more speed, may have a look at the overtake. Using some slipstream down the backstretch, has now kind of applied the pressure to Horner as they come into turns 5, 6, and 7. If Horner has a bad run through 8 or 9, could spell doom for this battle. And Mansueto would be able to go right on by. Mansueto, the one with a little bit more oversteer than the Bentley. It has closed up to the rear bumper, but not close enough for an overtake. Very close running between the Bentley of Miller, the Jags of Craters, and DeHaro. Just a little over a second between all of them. Miller gets a bad run out of turn 10, but Craters and the Jag with nowhere to go, forced to stick behind. They have the opportunity to stick the nose of the big cat into the chicane or possibly even turn 1, but no, Craters makes a big mistake, gets too much of the sausage curve, and is that going to leave him victim to DeHaro? Craters will not carry much momentum down the straight, or not as much as DeHaro, and that is evident in the speed difference between these two. Into the braking zone in turn 1. DeHaro very, very narrow to the inside. They'll be door to door. DeHaro just needs to keep a nose up the inside by the time they exit 2, but no, Craters will lock the position back down ahead of DeHaro. The gap between the other two drivers on the podium still very tight, as by the end of this lap we will be at the halfway point. We'll see if Mansueto will be able to finally get the overtake done. Wagner relegated to the back, made his way up the order, then once again relegated to the back by a self-inflicted wound. As you can see the evidence of that self-inflicted wound on the front of that Bentley. He is now all over the rear bumper of the Jaguar of Todd for P5. We will see if the Bentley will be able to get the position from the Jag. Horner, I believe, has had a disconnection, and we have lost Horner, so Mansueto automatically promoted to P2, and Norman automatically promoted onto the podium in P3. Door to door between Todd and Wagner. And there is that evidence of being forced around the outside at turn 3. It just does not work. Wagner very easily goes up the inside at turn 3. Todd onto the grass trying to find some more time, find some more momentum, more speed. Just ran out of track. Horner has re-entered the session. Don't know if he'll get that Bentley back out on track. Will be a couple laps down, but very possible that he gets a few more warm-up laps, maybe some qualifying practice to go for the pole position in Q2. Labe, a dominant showing in this race, and I don't think to anyone's much surprise, as Labe has shown dominance throughout this series in the Aston Martin. But what Labe has not been so dominant in is these one-shot qualifiers. Go back to Oulton Park, Labe taking the win in race 1 very, very handily. But then in Q2 just not able to put the lap together, and I think was not able to do better than P5. Had a ton of speed, but with the tight corners, tight sections of that track was just nowhere to go. Bahena with Wagner now applying pressure. Sorry, once again. Bahena with some connection issues. Wagner wanted to go up the inside at turn 4, but the opportunity did not come. Maybe with some slipstream we'll have another opportunity in the runs between 9 and 10. Nose to tail as they go through the Aston Martin, gets a bit more acceleration out of turn 9. Wagner forces the Aston Martin up the inside, wants to go for the old switcheroo, does not necessarily work as he's right up to the rear bumper, and I think with the blipping from Bahena, Wagner may be a bit skeptical. Norman off, and I believe completely on his own. Mansueto off as well. Two completely separate solo incidents. Mansueto will not lose any time or any positions, but Norman will, as Norman gets relegated, I believe, all the way down to P7. And it's Bahena who has moved up into the podium positions, and this would be Bahena's first podium, as long as he can keep the Bentley of Wagner behind. Bahena has got the lights turned on, so we'll be able to avoid a penalty. Now, with 8 minutes left in this race, has the not so easy task of trying to hold the multi-time TRC champion of Wagner and the 99 Bentley at bay. Veldkamp in P10 behind the number 913 Jaguar of Craters in P9. Veldkamp goes a bit too late on the brakes into 5. Doesn't lose any time though, as the gaps between these three stay pretty consistent. Labe still just on his own, about to get a lap on the 84 Jaguar of Brown. And no, the 913 of Craters off on his own at turn 9. Goes through the chicane that we do not use. But incident again between the 97 and the 616. And Craters gets put right back where he was in this fight. Merkel just now getting it started and trying to re-enter the racing surface will drop down quite a ways. I believe all the way back to P12. And no, I don't know if there was contact there between the two, but Bahena goes around the nose of Wagner. He re-enters the track, gets the essentially threaded like a needle with Ewer, as this battle between Ewer, Norman, and Miller is very, very tight between the three. Ewer and Miller door to door through 4. Promise I'm not trying to rhyme there. And they wanted to make it 3 wide into 5. That does not work. Norman in the tough spot, wants to go up the inside of Miller at turn 8, side by side between the two in contact. Norman goes around Miller, goes off and into the sand, and that gives some positions back to Bahena. But it's Todd up to P4, now Wagner in P3 on the podium, and is right on the rear of the 185 Jag of Mansueto. We'll see if Wagner will be able to get back up to P2, or I say back up to P2, all the way up to P2. A bit too far to go for Wagner to have an opportunity at the race win, as Labe is about a half a track ahead. And Miller gets a drive-through penalty for track limits and will dive into the pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty. Just needs to make sure that he does not get a speeding penalty getting into pit lane as well. Labe with absolutely no pressure. Just has to bring it home in one piece. With 4 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. Mansueto, on the other hand, has a lot of pressure. The 99 Bentley of Wagner. Right behind as Miller clears his drive-through penalty. Who is that off up ahead? It's the 84 of Brown. Is off the track, but a yellow flag through that sector. Wagner wanted to carry a ton of speed through 9, went off into the sand. That will kill his momentum, so he won't have an opportunity. But at the same time, Mansueto makes a mistake and just hands the position to Wagner. Wagner makes a mistake in turn. And now Mansueto has the opportunity to fight this position back with just a couple laps left to go. Wagner with a better run out of the final corner. believe as long as he doesn't make any more mistakes, we'll be able to secure P2 from here on out. Norman making some more mistakes. Now with the number 10 Jag of DeHaro behind. Veldkamp in the Aston Martin has gone past the 913 Jag of Craters. The 43 Jag of DeHaro off at the exit of the final corner and into the pit lane will get demoted to the back of the pack. I believe that'll be P13 for DeHaro. Craters will have to try and fight this position back from the Aston Martin of Veldkamp for P7. Wagner a second clear of Mansueto for P2. And Labe will come across the line with 2 to go this lap and 1 more for the dominant race leader. He's just about 2 sectors ahead. Sorry, not 2 sectors, but 1 full sector ahead of the rest of the field. Wagner in P2, Mansueto P3, and Todd in P4, who may not be counted out of this podium. Has a couple seconds to gain to Mansueto. And Norman, the 12 Aston Martin, gets a drive-through penalty for track limits that will be applied at the end of the race. Craters and Veldkamp. Potential of a battle between these two. Norman wants to get into this fight, but will not be able to gain any positions out of it, as he does have that drive-through penalty. Any positions gained would be given back and then some when that drive-through penalty is applied at the end of the race. See if Norman comes in at the end of this lap and serves his drive-through on the final lap of the race, or whether or not he just lets the penalty apply at the end. Labe across the line to start the final flying lap of this race. As the clock rounds down to 0 by the time Labe gets out of the turn 1 and 2 sector. Oh. Bit of an odd issue there. Don't know how it put me like that, but Horner ahead of Mansueto. These two will likely finish in this order. Todd, who looked like he was closing up to the back of the Jag of Mansueto, will not be gaining that much time and will likely finish P4. Ewer and Bahena 1.4 seconds between the two. One mistake from being in or out of this fight from either of them. The 12 of Norman will not serve the drive-through penalty. Will apply the penalty at the end of the race. Craters, Veldkamp, and Norman. Norman split from this pack by the number 84 Jag of Brown. Gap falling between Ewer and Bahena. There is the possibility that Bahena will be able to get that position P5 away from Ewer. Out of the final corner and across the line. Another victory in this series for Labe. A dominant one at that. It's It's not over between Craters and Veldkamp, but it may very well be over between Ewer and Bahena. Wagner out of the final corner across the line will bring home P2. Mansueto will bring home P3. Todd will bring home P4. Ewer P6, as Bahena, I believe, tried to make a lot of time and has ultimately lost it. Craters ahead of Veldkamp. It will be Bahena, Craters, Veldkamp. Actually, no, it was Veldkamp that fell back. Norman finished ahead, but will be demoted when that penalty is applied. Veldkamp P9 for now. Merkel P10 for now as well. And Miller, last across the line, will bring home P11. It's Labe taking home the win. P1, Wagner P2, Mansueto P3, Todd P4, Ewer P5, Bahena P6, Craters P7, Norman P8, Veldkamp P9, Merkel P10, Miller P11, Brown P12, DeHaro P13, and Horner P14. Labe with the win in the Holy Grail. Mansueto P2, Todd P3, Ewer P4, Bahena P5, Veldkamp P6, Brown P7, DeHaro P8. So Labe, Wagner, and Mansueto only have one flying lap opportunity in Q2. And that qualifying session will get started immediately when we transition over. Horner, I believe, having some connection issues. Left again. Has rejoined, though. And we are just waiting for the session to transfer over to qualifying. A bit of a break for the drivers between race 1 and Q2. And we transition over to Q2. Who will be the first out? Will it be Craters at the front? Will it be Labe? As the track is optimum, we still have the opportunity for weather. I don't believe that we will see any in qualifying. We shouldn't see any in qualifying. And who is it out first? Is it the 915 of Horner? Yes, it is. Spending that time sitting in the pit lane, has likely wanted to go ahead and get back out there, as Horner will be the first of our drivers out on track to start his out lap. Again, Labe, Horner, and Mansueto. Sorry, not Horner. Labe, Wagner, and Mansueto are the three drivers that will only have one opportunity at a flying lap in this session. Some large gaps between the drivers. So we only have 4, now 5 drivers out of the pit lane and on track. Horner will have as many opportunities to put together the best lap time he can. Was fighting for P2 until he had the unfortunate disconnection. And he does have the speed to put his car up there. Bit of a, I'd say, a showy line through turn 13. But out of the final corner, we'll start his first flying lap of Q2. And Labe will start his only flying lap of Q2. Majority of the field is out on track. Mansueto and Wagner, the other two drivers that only have one flying lap opportunity, still in pit lane. I think they're waiting for the track to warm up as much as possible before they go out for their flying lap. .915 of Horner in the Bentley does kind of monster truck over the exit sausage curb. Out and across the line, what is the time from Horner? Not valid. Actually, no, it is valid. Just took a minute. As Labe goes into the 144s on his flying lap. Definitely showing some pace in the Aston Martin. 1.7 seconds clear of Horner. That is all that Labe has. It's all that he will be allowed to do. He has done a very, very good job of setting the fastest lap time he possibly could. Likely had no fuel in the car, and it set up very, very, very aggressively. Miller goes P3. The 913 of Craters knocks Miller down to P4, goes up to P3 himself. The 12 of Norman. And welcome in, everybody. Q2 of round 4, the TRC Posh British GT3 series. Norman goes P3, you were P4, Miller now down to P6. The 18 of Bahena in the Aston Martin across the line is not going to be a valid lap. Do we have any more of our one-shot qualifiers out there? Yes, we do. The 185 of Mansueto, who is on that one-shot qualifier since he finished on the podium in race number 1. Thank you, Whatever Fool, for the shout out. Hope you had a good stream. Mansueto, this is his one and only flying lap. The 99 of Wagner, the other driver who will have a one-shot qualifier, still in the pit lane. Coming through turn 4. The 915 of Horner getting yellow flags, likely just step 2 tires out wide onto the sand or the grass. up through turns 7 and 8 for Mansueto. The 99 of Wagner still yet to go out. I think if he's got a flying lap, he'll just wait until the very end of the session. Let the track warm up as much as it will. And as much rubber down on track as possible as well. Out of 10. I think a bit of a slide of the rear tires may take a bit of time out, but Mansueto once again still pushing very, very hard into the chicane. Nice and tidy. Misses the second apex just a little bit, but carrying nice speed through the final corner. What will the time be for Mansueto? It's good enough for P2 from Mansueto, showing that he deserves to take home that second spot. Wagner ultimately did take that spot away, but we'll see if Mansueto will be able to defend the position this time. Where is the 99 of Wagner? Is he just wanting to start from the back? I believe he may be. Craters knocks Mansueto down a spot in the Jag, as he has definitely found some pace. Craters with one more opportunity to try to improve has 1.1 seconds to cover. The 18 of Bahena will start his final flying lap. The 25 of Todd came home P4 in the previous race 1. See if Todd is able to qualify, or at least get a time up on the board and not have to start from the back of the pack. It's good enough for P5 from Todd. 1.8, almost 1.9 seconds. The gap to the pole sitter, but still well into the field. 3 drivers still yet to qualify. The 616 of Veldkamp, who is on his final flying lap. The 84 of Brown. A touch of damage will come across the line with enough time for one more opportunity. But not carrying a ton of speed out of the corner. Craters into the pit lane. Horner, with the opportunity to improve up to P2, has knocked Mansueto down to P4. And Miller now in P5. Todd down to P6. The 97 of Merkel takes P7 and will end his qualifying there. The 616 of Veldkamp just needs to get a time on the board, does, but is only good enough for P12. The number 43 of Daharo goes P6. The number 25 of Todd, with some room to improve, doesn't need much to go up to P6 and take that spot away from Daharo. Doesn't need much more to move up to P5. And if he's on a really good lap, possibly may promote all the way up to P4. Needs to get early on the power and carry all of the speed possible through the final corner. A bit of a wiggle, and it will not be an improvement for Todd. Stays P7. The 915 of Horner just needs a couple tenths to move up into P2. Does he have it? No, he does not. Found some time, but not enough. And the 84 of Brown will be the last of our drivers across the line to finish Q2. I believe Wagner wanting to do another last 2 first, but he'll have to try and hunt down the 119 of Labe. Brown puts the time on the board for P13, knocks Wagner down to P14. Labe, a 144.9. the one and only car down into the sub-45s. Craters P2, Horner P3, Mansueto P4, Miller P5, DeHaro P6, Todd P7, Merkel P8, Norman P9, Ewer P10, Bahena P11, Veldkamp P12, Brown P13, and Wagner will start in P14. We will take a small break before we get rolling for the formation lap for race number 2. Don't go anywhere. Race 2 will be right here in just a couple minutes. Welcome back. Lap A leads us off the line for the formation lap for race number 2. This time Lap A makes it happen in qualifying, sticks it right back on pole, and with a one-shot qualifier actually runs a better lap than he ran in Q1. Once again, everyone will try to warm up the tires as best as possible, and Craters, with an issue, will start from the pit lane. I believe may have needed a reset. And Horner, another of those drivers who just needs to hope that everything stays together connection-wise for him, as he will actually get promoted back up to P2. And won't need to do all the work this time, like he did in race number 1 to get ahead of Mansueto. This time we'll start ahead of Mansueto in P2. just coasting, low RPM. V12 Aston Martin of Labe is just making a ton of noise. When the Aston Martin gets close, it's really the only car you can hear. Then you get the low, contrasting rumbling of the Bentley and the Jag. The Bentley is just a personal favorite car of mine. Bentley Continental GT3. It was absolutely huge compared to many of the other cars on track, but despite its size, and despite all the jokes people made about it, it was still fairly competitive, especially in the Bathurst 12-hour. They line up 2 by 2 as they come into the final chicane. The starting order will be changed a little bit, as I believe Craters coming into the pit lane has essentially given his spot away, and it will be Labe and Horner up at the front, all on their own. Green, green, green. They go immediately 3 wide behind Bentley of Miller and the Jag of DeHaro and Todd. They try to make it through turn 1 clean. A bit of contact between Brown and Norman. Norman will have to claw back a few positions now. Bahena wants to go up the inside, has actually gained a lot of positions. And off early, the 289 of Ewer will be relegated to the back, or almost to the back, just ahead of the 913 Jag of Craters. The 84 of Brown off and around at turn 8. Means Brown will be relegated to the back. Horner still ahead of Mansueto, desperately trying to hold on to the leading Aston Martin of Labe, but that is quite the tall order. Labe with just absolutely dominant speed. And Horner now with what will be 2 Jaguars in tow behind. Go back a touch further, you get to the Aston Martin of Bahena, the Jag of DeHaro, and the Bentley of Wagner, who again started from the back, has made his way all the way up to P7, the 99 Bentley of Wagner. Aston Martin battle here between Veldkamp and Merkel. Norman a few positions up ahead. Wagner wants to find a way around the Jaguar of DeHaro. And Wagner may pull off the old switcheroo. The Bentley seeming to have a fair amount of pace, at least during the race here, for Wagner. Close running between Horner and Mansueto. This is a rehash of the battle we had in race number 1 before Horner got disconnected to the technical difficulty. But they also have the new player of Todd and the Blue Jag bringing up the rear of this group. And these 3 all fighting for P2. It's a tight group behind as well. The 47 of Miller gets a stop and go penalty. Actually quite the infringement. I believe he may have gotten a penalty or just came into the pit lane. Bahena and Wagner. Wagner got the move done, but Bahena did not really want to just let it go, and Bahena goes back ahead. Wagner in the slipstream, lines up alongside. Also has the Jag of DeHaro wanting to get in the tow. As they come into turn one, Wagner just not quite close enough to go for the overtake. Move is not off though. Bahena gets shuffled to the outside. And as he's off the racing line, it is extremely hard to try and hold your speed compared to those drivers who will be on the inside racing line. But some side-by-side racing between Bahena and DeHaro will actually allow Wagner to cruise away ahead, and Norman and the Aston Martin wants to pick up a few positions, picking up the scraps in this battle as well. Battle between Horner, Mansueto, and Todd continues. The gap's opening up a little bit, though. But as long as these Jags can keep within the slipstream range of the Bentley, that Bentley punches a big hole through the air. Mansueto and Todd should be able to sit in the slipstream down the straights long enough close up the gaps, but moves like that are not going to help. Mansueto goes deep into turn 13, forcing Todd to lose some time as well, and Horner will pull away and ride off a little further into the distance. Bahena with Norman immediately behind. Norman with DeHaro, then Veldkamp, Merkel. You were a ways back with the 913 of Craters, who started in the pit lane. Norman all over the rear of Bahena, wants to find a way around. Sets up wide, will carry more momentum through, may have the switcheroo, or just to get alongside into turn 4, has the inside, does not go for the move, but Bahena forced later on the brakes will open the door, and Norman goes through to P6. Norman then goes late into 5. No big deal, Norman locking in that 6th place position. It's getting a bit tighter behind Bahena with Veldkamp in the Aston Martin, who wants to find a way past. And 5 cars running in a tight group. Mansueto with Todd still in tow, the gap ahead to Horner, 1.3 seconds. The gap from Labe to Horner, 4.7. Four cars deep, almost lined up 2 by 2 like a formation lap. The 2 pairs of battling cars get involved in kind of separate entanglements that will open the gap between the 2 pairs. DeHaro in the slipstream will try and maybe put a nose up the inside at turn 1, not quite close enough. The pressure does get applied though. Bahena goes deep into the braking zone. Will this allow DeHaro to set up the same move that Norman did a lap prior? I believe it may. We'll go up the inside. Does Bahena pull the momentum to go back around? No, he does not. And Bahena will now be under attack from Veldkamp. But Merkel and Ewer and even Craters, this battle essentially going all the way from P7 to P12, 6 cars involved. all kind of running within the slipstream. Norman in the number 12 Aston Martin, as the foam boards get absolutely smashed by everybody trying to run as wide as possible and carry more speed than the other car. Bahena very defensive, kind of clogging this group up behind, but no, Bahena loses it all on his own. And will fall back down to P12. That leaves Veldkamp to try and pull away now, as he's got Ewer directly behind, then Merkel, then Craters. And then there were 4. DeHaro up at the front. Todd ahead of Mansueto, and welcome Wagner to the party. Wagner versus Mansueto again, but Mansueto gets forced a long way around the outside, and now Wagner up to P4, hungry for what will now be P3 from Todd. And at the rate of advancement Wagner is moving up the order at, very possible that Wagner could take the second place position away from Horner. Thank you, Dr. Monco, for the follow. Back to the larger group for P8. Veldkamp ahead of Ewer, ahead of Merkel, ahead of Craters. Bahena very far back after his self-inflicted incident at turn 12. We'll see if the battling continues between this group, and if it does, that would make things a lot easier for Bahena to try and get back into the fight. Labe and Horner fairly comfortable in their positions, but Todd not so comfortable, as he does have the 99 Bentley of Wagner. The Bentley already very big in the mirror, but Wagner can make that Bentley a lot bigger. Trying to force Todd to go very defensive. Crossover move to try and force Todd close up on the apex and carry less momentum out. Does not work. Wagner will have to try getting the position with outright pace over the Blue Jag of Todd. Wagner flashing the lights, showing that he is ready to get the overtake on Todd. Try to get Todd to drive more so looking in the mirrors rather than through the windshield, aiming at the 915 of Horner. But as of right now, I think that driving in the mirrors is working on Todd, as Wagner is all over the rear bumper. We'll watch the delta between Horner and Todd to see if it grows, and if it does, by how much. We are now just halfway through this race number 2. Wagner in the slipstream, all over the rear of the Jag. Wants to go for the late move into 1. They bang doors, door-to-door contact. And Todd, elbows out, is not going to take this one lying down. Wagner gets ahead by the time they get into 3, but is forced onto an awkward line. We'll see how Todd fights this one back. Wagner carrying a lot of momentum, moving up quite a few positions. Todd has not had much battle experience this race, aside from the battle with Horner. Sorry, the battle with Wagner. We'll see if Todd is able to keep hard-charging Bentley up ahead within slipstream range. Wagner went off into the sand, so that will hurt his momentum a little bit. It's not going to be enough to allow Todd the chance at the overtake, but Wagner is also coming up to a bit of an obstacle in the 915 Bentley of Horner, who will be no slouch. And Wagner will have quite the time to try and get past the fellow Bentley driver. We've seen these two battle many times in TRC throughout all of the various leagues and seasons. And we'll see another one here as Wagner looks to be closing up quite a bit. Horner a bit later on the brakes into turn one. Wagner is now right on the rear bumper. Wagner gets a much better drive through three than the majority of the field. Horner may have been hoping for a more aggressive braking from Wagner, but no, it did not come. And not much of an aggressive defense from Horner either, as Wagner moves up into P2. Now with nothing between himself and Labbe, I don't know that he has enough time to try and catch Labbe. Needs over a second a lap faster than the race leader, and I just don't think that is possible. And Sweato and P5 still in the conversation for this battle going all the way up to P2, or at least this group of cars going all the way up to P2. The 616 of Veldkamp and the number 289 of Ewer fighting for P8 and 9. The 12 and the 43, the Aston Martin and the Jag of Norman and DeHaro. Norman goes a bit deep into 13. Is the opportunity going to arise for DeHaro? Yes, it definitely will. Norman gets a very poor run out of the final corner, and DeHaro, with no tires in the sand compared to Norman's 2 tires in the sand, carries a lot more speed and gets well clear of the nose of Norman. The 97 Aston of Merkel pulling up to the rear of the 913 Jag of Craters. Craters just gets too much of the curb and will lose it on his own, and hard into the wall for Craters. That's going to be some damage on the front of that Jag for sure. We'll see if Craters continues on with the race or if he parks it. Look to be a pretty hefty amount of damage. DeHaro and Norman, this battle between the two is not over. Craters does get the 913 Jag refired. May have taken a minute to power cycle and get it started back up and moving. DeHaro now has to try and hold the Aston Martin at bay. It was an easy overtake the lap prior, or earlier in this lap, but the Aston Martin still there within contention for the position. Fight between the Jags. Todd ahead of Mansueto. The gap between them was a lot smaller. I think Todd may have just carried more momentum out of the final turn. The 616 Aston Martin ahead of the 289 Bentley of Ewer. Veldkamp and Ewer Both drivers taking the racing line, but Ewer goes a bit too deep. That is going to take a lot of his momentum away. And will fall back outside of slipstream range of Veldkamp. Horner still in P3. Todd not outside of the realm of possibility to take this position back, but he still does have the nuisance of Mansueto, who is not going to really let him pull away. With less than 6 minutes left in this race, does put us right around 3 or 4 laps to go. As Labe, the race leader, comes across the line, quite a few seconds ahead of the P2 Bentley of Wagner. The gap starts to open up between these three in P3, 4, and 5. It seems like these group of three are maybe heading one direction or heading the other, but the gaps between them are really just staying stable. Horner just trying to hold his own and bring home the podium. Not too much in the realm of hope for catching the 99 of Wagner once he had gone by. Todd and Mansueto behind. Still applying a bit of pressure. And it's not necessarily going to be the nice evening drive for Horner if he wants to take home this last spot on the podium. Veldkamp, sorry, not Norman and Veldkamp and Ewer, the gap between those two closing a bit, actually closing very rapidly. Veldkamp does not get a very good run through turn 1. And what has happened here? This gap between these three has gotten much tighter than it was. Mansueto runs off into the grass. That kind of will pull him out of the fight. But if Horner and Todd can start to directly battle each other a bit more, Mansueto will be right back in the midst of that battle. I believe there will be 2 laps to go when our race leader of Labe crosses the line, but Todd all over the rear of the Bentley. Things starting to heat up, as I think Todd may have just been waiting for the end of the race to get more aggressive, save the tires, save the car, till when you need it most, and that's right here at the very end. And no! Less than 2 minutes left to go. And Horner gets disconnected again. Extremely unfortunate it seemed like he was going to make his way through this time and finish this race in P3, but no, it will not happen. And Todd gets promoted to P3. Very sorry for any server issues today, as there have been some issues with G Portal. Hopefully they get ironed out. Todd runs a bit deep into turn 5 through the kink of 6 and into the uphill left-hander of 7. Todd runs a bit wide again. Thank you, Dr. Monko, and thank you for the follow. Again, and thank you for your first time chat. Race leader of Lab A, it's been all quiet for the Aston Martin driver. Will lead the final lap of the race and can probably drive at 75% and still bring home the win. The fight for P3 is on between Todd and Mansueto. Todd trying to break the toe. Mansueto is following. And it is not over between these two. Going a bit further back, the gap is close between Veldkamp, Ewer, and Merkel as well. That gap has grown, though. Labe still with the fastest lap. Wagner had closed up the time a bit, less than 12 seconds, as that gap was more than 12 seconds. Mansueto needs to give it everything he has got through turns 8 and 9. Needs to carry as much speed as possible and stay within that slipstream range. But Todd keeps it nice and tidy as well. Does Mansueto have it tidier? I believe he does, but not close enough at turn 10. Labe out of the final corner. Takes the clean sweep of the weekend. 2 poles and 2 wins for Labe. Wagner with no qualifying brings home P2 in both races. And Todd will bring home the podium and second place in the Holy Grail for the Jaguar driver Mansueto, P4. DeHaro will bring home P5. Norman will bring home P6. Veldkamp P7. And Ewer will bring home P8. Merkel P9. And Bahena, after his unfortunate incident, a bit of damage, will bring home P10. But it has all been about Labe going for a victory lap, wanting to bring the car home, and extends his lead in both the Holy Grail and overall championships. Bahena across the line, P10. And that will conclude tonight's festivities. Our podiums, Labe, Wagner, and Todd. And then in the Holy Grail series, Labe, Todd, and Mansueto. Holy Grail drivers taking up a large portion of this series. Don't go anywhere. We will be giving somebody a raid. But thank you all for tuning in. And we'll be back on Monday with Go Fast Racing. We'll be back on Monday for the next round of the TRC Posh British GT3 series. Thank you all again, and we're going to go raid Gargle Some Water, who is playing ACC.